Hello, how's it going? Gennaro here, CEO of Cortex Solutions, and today we're going to be talking about IoT security. So think about any device that you have in your home, in your environment that has, an IP address. That's now a node. I'm talking about your smart refrigerators. I'm talking about your smart TVs. These are devices, even thermostats now as well, and light bulbs. These devices are one of the ones, at least in my opinion, could be the most unsecure. So what do we do about that? How do we go about protecting these devices? And we'll talk about that today. So IoT. Think back to a time where that just really wasn't a thing. Now IoT devices could literally be sensors inside of a power plant. And within this power plant, you have your SCADA devices, your SCADA systems in place. And these systems are now being introduced to the internet, to the network. So what better way to bridge that gap between the physical and the digital than bringing into place a better way of interacting with our Internet of Things? So we have our smart homes, like I mentioned, and within the smart home, you can have your smart TVs, your smart toasters, your smart refrigerators, and it can go as far as the industrial space. So think about it like that. They're the same, in a sense, type of devices, just used differently. So these are an everyday part of life now. In order to get a better understanding of the architecture, let's talk more about the core components and the different layers that are associated with this as well. Now, to secure an IoT system, again, think about it in a layered approach. The different attack vectors that we will normally see and the layers within how an IoT device is made, or at least the architecture, that is going to kind of weigh how much security you need on that portion, if that makes sense, right? Because again, you can go defense in depth as well. So let's talk about the perception layer, right? This is going to involve the actual sensor itself. This is what's gathering information. Think about your IoT device, your smart thermometer in your home, right? You have the ability to kind of sense around what the temperature is, what the humidity is. And then you have your network layer. Now, this is responsible for transmitting the actual data between the devices and then the server. So again, if you have a smart home, right, you're able to, especially if you have some data stored in the cloud somewhere as well, and being able to reference and interact with that data too. The vulnerabilities that exist on the network layer, think about the transmission of data back and forth. We need to make sure we're using secure communication, or at least the protocols that are secure in nature, not any clear text protocols. And then you have your application layer too. So another way to think about it, kind of get in the mind frame of the OSI model, but within this space, you're talking about one IoT device. At the application layer, you have the end user interface, you have the web applications, right? So understand that there are threats that exist within this space as well too. It's going to be the exploitation of the vulnerability of the software, the vulnerability of the user, right, within phishing. Now, another way to protect the network layer, we always talk about using SSL TLS, right? Using that combination, and along with understanding behaviors, right? Along with understanding that, hey, if we have these unsecure devices, we know they come as default unsecure. How can we make it secure? How can we go about hardening the actual system itself? So then you think about, what are some of the threats? What does that landscape look like? And that's going to be botnets. That's going to be the way of spoofing these devices as well. You can do MAC address spoofing too. So think about the same terms. If you're coming from the standpoint of, I know how to do network penetration testing, physical pen testing. So think about any way of spoofing a device, you have the ability to do that. Now, some of the other things to really kind of dive more into, think about exploitation, right? How can we exploit the use of firmware? We always talk about BIOS, right? That's an actual firmware. You can do firmware upgrades. And of course, that firmware, in a sense, can still be compromised. So mitigating these threats and regularly doing your routine scans, continuous monitoring, this is going to help ensure that you're implementing some of the best practices. Now, some of those secure communication protocols, let's kind of dive a little bit more in depth on this. Now, if you wanted to ensure that you had your secure communication intact, we have to look at the different layers. We have to look at what are the protocol limitations. How can we implement this in stages, especially if you already have something ongoing that's not as secure, but you want to migrate? Think about the security features as well too. Now, this could look in the form of like what type of encryption you're using. Are you using AES 256, right? Are we using any type of, insecure communications or vulnerable encryption ciphers, right? Especially if it's vulnerable, and we'll know through the use of vulnerability scanning, it's going to let us know, hey, we're using weak ciphers. We should probably do something about that, as in upgrade as much as we possibly can, or just ensure really that the device itself, and you're going in the process of, think about IAM and understanding that there's going to be authentication and authorization. There are differences, and we talked about that before too. But understand that using multi-factor authentication and being able to, have a barrier or a buffer that says, I know you know your password, I know you know your username, right? But I need something else. I need something different. What else do you have? Well, I have a PIN. Well, I have a fingerprint, retina scan, something along the lines of, we need to identify, but verify it, right? Now, AI and machine learning and IoT security. So think all the way back to when we first started talking about the different worms that started to surface as the internet began. Now, there's a combination now, because as we grow, as we get more complex, using AI and machine learning and integrating that within the IoT devices, this is transforming how we see technology. Especially when we're looking to gather massive amounts of data, because we talk about big data as well, and we will have your data analysis and your pattern recognition. So think about it like, if we're going to be handling vast amounts of data in vast volumes, this is going to, be crucial for processing. You need algorithms within AI and machine learning to process and analyze the data in real time, and will make it a lot more faster than what we could possibly do. Now, recognizing that patterns exist and going along the same line of, there has to be detection, there has to be anomalies usually. How can we go about doing that? This is vital for understanding in order to enable the detection of these different, anomalies. We have to put in place certain algorithms and patterns that we need. Now, you can look at it from the other predictive maintenance standpoint, and you can really see it just being, you can anticipate it. You can say, okay, we are doing technically tabletop exercises, right? Or we're doing more of a what if scenarios. This is anticipating equipment failure. So by analyzing the sensor itself from the machinery standpoint, the AI and the ML combined, it can predict when that equipment is likely to fail. Wouldn't that be good if we're looking to create a disaster recovery plan or a contingency plan, or figure out, what is the mean time between, right? What are we looking at in regards to being able to understand that, I can actually look ahead in the future and be able to minimize the downtime and reduce repair costs as well too, because I already know when it's going to fail in a sense. So we can already have everything in place. Another way of looking at AI, machine learning, and IoT, think about your automation and enhanced security, and then being able to personalize that user experience. How does this happen though? In real time, your AI, ML, even looking at it as a generative AI standpoint as well too, it can generate these answers. It can generate real-time data for you. If you're analyzing and then automating the process, it's going to take a lot of the stressors off the actual specialists or analysts that would be doing the analyzing, just by looking at it, right? And going through their own process, of course, too. And with the addition of AI. Now, machine learning, right? Let's look at optimizing and how we can allocate different resources within these applications. Now, if we're looking to think about it from the cloud perspective, as we talked about scaling, this is essentially what you're looking at. You're looking to optimize the resources that you have available, and even see if you can add on as well if needed. But really making sure that no type of alerts are overlooked, especially if you've tuned your systems well. And then enhancing that security, kind of going back into being able to detect different threats and prevent threats as well with your IDSs and IPSs. Just having that form of, capability will enhance the user experience overall. So the key technologies, machine learning, deep learning, and then reinforcing that learning allows the IoT or that AI, right, to learn through trial and error. Being more understanding of, what are the general behaviors? And this is what you're training these AIs able to do. So of course, there's going to be regulations, right, concerning or governing IoT security. Now you have your NIST special publication 801 WP83. Now, this is going to guide how to implement security within IoT. Again, these are just best practices and guides. It enables you to ensure that those medical devices or manufacturing devices, that they adhere to the HIPAA standards and the rules. Now, understanding that when we're testing and pen testing, of course, you have to have your organization involved. You have to have the manager buy-in. You have to know all these different aspects of how to walk through your pen test, but also look at it from other aspects of, okay, well, this is IoT now. This is mobile, web app. So you have to look at it from a different perspective or use different guides, of course, because they exist. And being able to use tools like Shodan and identifying what are those exposed IoT devices. Again, think about a camera. Well, if it's a device with an IP address on the internet, it can be reached out and searched for. So try out Shodan, but of course, use it within means. And of course, remember that moral code, right? Because again, if we're looking to be ethical hackers, if we're looking to be security professionals, we have to do it in a way where it's still, good. All right, we have a due diligence, in a sense, a duty. Now, let's talk about how can we apply these examples. Well, we've been talking about IoT for industrial. Let's look at more of the smart home ecosystem, right? So IoT security. If you're looking to utilize this within your smart home and you want to focus really on, I have all these devices connected. How can I make sure and enable security? Well, you can look at it from multiple perspectives, but the way I look at it is from a layer perspective, right? Now, you automatically, the outcome is going to be, how can I secure devices, right? How can I automate the updates? How can I use complex passwords? And how can I make sure that I'm doing all this and monitoring and logging to know what's actually going on within the environment? What you want to put in, logging and monitoring, deploying firewall rules. We always talk about our ACLs, and then utilizing the WP83, of course, because that's the strongest encryption standard for your home Wi-Fi, because it's going to block unauthorized attempts. Now we're getting a lot smarter in regards to being able to block different attempts that are happening within the network. And then, of course, you want to regularly update that firmware too. Right? This is going to eliminate any vulnerabilities that may exist that are in the wild and maybe some you don't know about. All right, it's been great. Gennaro here, CEO of Cortex Solutions, and we just talked about IoT security, brought to you by ACSMI. Hope you have a good one. Take care.